All right, guys, so welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Justin Lessel and I'm the marketing manager at DevSkiller. In today's webinar, we'll be taking a closer look at the DevSkiller Tech Talent Report for 2022 and explore some of the key findings and takeaways. Before we begin though, I've got a couple of quick housekeeping things to go over. So number one, please ask us your questions. There is a Q&A section on your screen. And if you have any questions, just drop them in there and we'll get to them at the end of the session. This webinar is also being recorded. So if you can't make it to the end, or if you want to share it with your colleagues, we'll be sending you a recording link early next week. And last but not least, there is a post-webinar survey that we'll be sending to you straight after the webinar, and we'd really appreciate it if you take the time to fill that in. It takes about 2 minutes. All right, let's start with our agenda. So first of all, we're going to meet our panelists, which I'll get to very shortly. Second of all, we're going to have a quick overview of the DevSkiller Tech Talent Report for 2022. We'll get into the extended discussion with our panelists. And as I mentioned before, there'll be the Q&A. So why don't I begin with introducing Jakub Kubrinski, DevSkiller CEO and co-founder. Why don't you give us a little bit of information about yourself?
As Justin mentioned, I'm the CEO and the founder of DevSkiller. I founded DevSkiller many years ago just to fight my frustration around the technical hiring. Right now, as DevSkiller, we are available globally on 6 continents with candidates from all over the world. We are happy to share the knowledge that we have around the market that comes from our tests and exams that we are taking.
Awesome, thanks for that. And Tomek, we call you Tomek. Why don't you give us a little bit of information about yourself?
So hi guys, I'm Tomek. I'm a CTO at DevSkiller. So basically both doing software development, but also taking care of our platform, making sure it works, it's fast, it's unbiased, and also doing a little bit of recruitment. So we are kind of dogfooding our own platform, and we as well have some experience with recruiting software developers,
which I think we'll get to in today's discussion. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we'll just have a quick overview of the DevSkiller Tech Talent Report. So this is our 4th annual publication. We've been publishing this report since 2019, and we just released our latest publication for 2022 on Tuesday this week. If by chance you didn't see the report yet, we did send you an email, actually a couple of emails before this webinar. So you can check that, and there's a PDF version in the email. It would be a good idea to open that up and follow along with us as we go through the discussion today. The report is based on aggregated anonymized data from our customers. So we serve customers in over 85 countries worldwide who test technical candidates in 191 countries globally. So what do we cover inside the Tech Talent Report? We start off by taking a look at the 2021 tech talent trends. Then we look into the desirable IT skills. So this includes the most popular IT skills on our platform, fastest developing skills on our platform, technical candidate behavioral observations, tech recruitment insights, and geo-sourcing patterns. So this is where we look at where companies are testing their developers in, from which country, which we'll also cover in today's discussion. So what's in it for you? We hope that you get some actionable advice and tech recruitment tips from the report. This report is designed for tech recruiters. It's designed for companies to help them hire developers. And we've also included 2022 tech talent predictions, which we're also going to discuss in this webinar. So that will set you guys up for hopefully happy hiring in 2022. Now, I will just bear with me for one moment while we jump into our panel, and we'll get to our first question. So, if my thing loads, what was your biggest surprise or takeaway from this year's report?
All right, so while I was reading the report, I noticed a huge spike in mostly the data science part. So I was really surprised. There's a huge spike in the number of data science tasks that companies are looking for. Because bear in mind that our report is actually based on the real technical assignments that we are given to, or our customers are giving to candidates. So there's a huge surge in data science, especially Python, because that's kind of the language of choice for many data scientists. So that's kind of my main takeaway and my biggest surprise, like how much bigger this particular space grew in our industry. So that's one thing. And I also noticed that there's a huge growth in the DevOps space. Just bear in mind that DevOps is not a position; it's kind of a mindset. But anyways, we would like to test that mindset as well.
For sure.
So there's a huge spike in that as well. So Python as the first part, and DevOps questions. So everything related to infrastructure and to bridging the gap between developers and operations, because that's what DevOps is all about after all.
If I can piggyback on
Sure.
that, what Tomek was saying, like for me, the biggest surprise was a high position of the blockchain technology, because like everyone is talking that the blockchain is dead, that the hype on the blockchain is over, and now we see like over 200% increase around the blockchain in this year. So that was a serious surprise.
Definitely
a surprise for me, especially in this year.
You know what? I'm actually not that surprised, to be honest, because the blockchain was all the rage in like the techie hacker news crowd, but now it's getting like commercialized. So more and more people are actually looking for
no cryptocurrencies, but doing the real stuff with the blockchain,
more or less real stuff,
like ledgers or something else.
So the recruiting market is kind of lagging behind the actual hype. But that makes sense.
I think it's an important point to raise. We did cover DevOps to quite an extent at the end of last year. That was, the 2021 was kind of the year of DevOps, where we had our panels at the end of the year. We're also going to be doing a complete series on data science this year. So we're going to be hosting 3 panels starting in 2 weeks' time. For those of you who are watching, keep an eye on that space, because we'll be looking a little bit deeper into data science as well. So yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. Okay, next question is for Kuba. So what was the biggest change you've noticed from all of the data we've compiled over the past 4 years? What stood out to you? Why was that surprising to you? So
okay, so I would divide the answer into like 2 segments, right? Because it really depends on the segment of the customer we are talking about. Because if we are talking about the enterprise segment, so like very big companies that are very stable, right? I don't want to say frozen, but they are stable. So around that, it's not changing a lot. So here we see that a lot of companies are using some very core stack that includes Java or .NET, so the enterprise technologies, along with the SQL, so the databases, relational databases, as well as frontend, right? So like Java plus SQL plus JavaScript is a core technological stack for most of the like mature companies, and this one is not changing. But what we see is that year by year there is a growing demand for developers around the lightweight technologies. So we see the PHP, we see more and more JavaScript that is used by the enterprises, mostly for the front-end stuff, so writing the browser applications, but by startups or some smaller, more agile companies, it's also used as a full stack language, including the backend applications. And we also see the huge demand for Python. And the Python that is used not only from the perspective of software development, but also like there are people using Python around the credit risk assessment or around the financial departments that use Python not to write applications, but to resolve the business problems. So that's what we see. And that's what we also hear from the customers when they are saying that the usage of DevSkiller is going beyond the development teams. There are even some companies without development teams that come to us to help them recruit developers, because that's not their core skill. They're a financial company. They want to hire people for the financial team, but with the basic programming skills, for example, around Python.
Yeah. It's a good point that you brought up about Python, because my next question is actually specifically related to Python, Tomek. So for those of you at home watching, Python was actually the 4th most popular programming language tested on our platform in the last 12 months. That's in the 4th position, actually, or was it 3rd position? I can't remember exactly, but it's a big jump. It hadn't been in the top 5 in any of our publications in the past, so it is a huge jump. So with that, Tomek, Python has been consistently growing over the past few years, kind of at a meteoric rate. Do you think that pace will continue this year, or do you foresee maybe a different technology that might overtake it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, because many people consider Python to be this like new, fancy, exciting language. It's actually pretty old. It's older than Java, although it's extremely versatile. So it's data science on one hand, which I already mentioned. Kuba mentioned about like even people who are not strictly developers who are using Python because it's so kind of easy to grasp. Also, many universities are using Python as a primary language to teach people the programming. So regarding the overall trend, it's hard to say, because at some point the market will be kind of saturated and you cannot like write essentially everything in Python. But anyways, it's definitely a good bet. So if you're like wanting to enter the market, Python is definitely a safe bet. Just like with these, like you said, enterprise technologies, Java, SQL, and so on, Python is definitely one of these. And no matter what you do, whether it's a hardcore backend development or data science, or just some simple scripting and just like replacing manual work with some automation, Python is definitely the right tool. And the ecosystem is extremely large. So no matter what you do, you will always find some supporting libraries and the community. So to answer your question, I don't think that it's going to be growing so dynamically. Maybe it will jump like one place or two, but it will stay there. It's a really old language. It's like 25 years old right now. It's more than 25, I guess. But anyways, I see a bright future here with this language.
We can expect it in the top 5 again next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you believe, because you mentioned that it's the language that is used mostly by universities as a first programming language, do you believe that for people who are, for example, are in the financial departments or something like this, Python is the right choice for the first programming language when they need to like write a stuff to, I don't know, resolve their problems, automate some stuff, etc.?
So in this particular case, I was actually working in the banking industry, and you need a language that actually supports this domain, the banking domain, and Python is good for that. For some technical reasons that I won't mention here, but for example, it's very good for like scientific math operations and so on. It's built
like
into the language.
Yeah,
like Fortran. Yeah. So in the banking industry, it's definitely a good choice because it seems to be like well aligned with this. So many people consider Python to be this like hipster style of language for doing like
new coders
prototyping
and
so on. But to be honest, even though it's a dynamically typed language, it's actually very suitable for doing domain specific stuff like banking, insurance, and so on and so forth. And it doesn't have, it's not very surprising, so to speak, because many languages have this accidental complexity, like C, for example, or Fortran.
That was the first programming language I've learned. So
not sure if Fortran made it to the report this year, but
yeah, hopefully not. Or COBOL, to be honest. But these are like very, like COBOL, for example, is very low level, which means you have to type a lot of stuff to get things done. And Python like feels very lightweight. But on the other hand, it gets the job done. Its performance is not as good as these old technologies like Java or .NET or whatever, which are actually younger than Python. But anyway, but it's enough in these particular circumstances. So I would say I don't see a particular business or area where Python wouldn't be a good fit. And I'm saying this as a hardcore Java developer.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do use Python occasionally because it just works better.
Sure.
They will grab your Java.
So
you are no longer Java champion for promoting
Java community
Python.
Not happy with you. Okay, I think before our next question, I might launch a poll. So hopefully this goes well. So yeah, first question we have for everybody today. So what is your main focus for technical hiring in 2022? Is it front-end developers? I hope everybody can see this. Yes, I can see it. Getting some votes through front-end, back-end, full stack, DevOps, data science, or maybe something else. Hopefully we can tailor some of this into the answers as we go.
A lot of votes here.
Give it maybe a couple more seconds. Alrighty, let's end that and we'll share the results. So leading the way was backend with 30% of the votes, full stack 20%, DevOps, data science 20, and front end surprisingly only 10%. So that's interesting that we have there. Now let me jump back to our next question, which I believe is again for you, Tomek. So sorry to, put it on you again.
May I just comment on the poll? I think probably because you were surprised by the low numbers of the front-end developers, probably enterprises are looking for full-stack developers because they'd rather have a single person doing all the stuff rather than just this division. And whether it's a good idea or not, that's kind of a totally different discussion. But somehow people would rather have like a person who can do a full use case from top to bottom. So
including DevOps stuff.
Including DevOps stuff, because as I mentioned, DevOps shouldn't be considered as a position.
That's something
like
that we can discuss on the next webinar. It's possible to have one person that fits all roles.
Yeah, exactly.
In a company.
Exactly. Okay, so Tomek, here's the next question for you. For those of you who are watching at home, we included some insights, tech recruitment insights. We actually took a look at seniority in particular. So what positions of like level of seniority companies were testing for. So Tomek, some people say that technical assessments should not be used for senior roles because they are in such high demand. Do you think it's reasonable to expect senior developers to take a coding test?
So it's definitely easier with juniors because they have like they are more willing to take the test because they don't have as many options, I would say. But on the other hand, and this is also supported by our data, our customers do use coding tests for seniors, and seniors do take these tests. I'm not really sure from the report, like what is the take rate?
I can tell you that actually, yeah, it was 40% of our customers were testing for junior, but 36.6, nearly 37 were for senior.
So pretty similar, yeah.
Pretty similar.
So anyways, I kind of consider myself as a senior. I wouldn't
We'd
mind.
Hope so.
I wouldn't mind doing a coding test because no matter what you do during your recruitment process, and no matter whether you're looking for junior, senior, CTO, whatever, you probably do want to see how a specific person like does coding, right? This is the thing that the person is supposed to do. So we can do it at the beginning of your like recruitment funnel. So like as a screening part, you can push it at the very end when like the person who you are interviewing like comes to your office and is doing some pair programming. It's kind of up to you how do you want to structure the process. However, and also notice that for seniors, you typically don't have as many applications. So maybe you don't need like to cut off so many people at the beginning of your funnel, but it totally depends on your company. If you have like an insane employer branding, and even for a senior position where the list of requirements is like crazy long, which is an anti-pattern, but anyways. But even in these cases, if you have like a ton of seniors, this can be like the first step in the funnel. However, do expect some seniors to drop out here because like they don't want to do a coding test, which is kind of a red flag for me because I enjoy programming, and if I'm giving an interesting programming task, and that's what we aim for in our platform. If you're given an interesting task, I'm all for it. I'm just giving a repository. I'm doing some coding, and I would love to get some feedback from the company. And it's so much better than answering multiple choice questions or writing essays like, what do you think whether why Java is better than .NET or vice versa? I mean, that's just pointless.
Also, what's important here is that the taking tests is a benefit for both sides, right? Because when I'm as a candidate, when I'm attending the technical interview, if I see after 15 minutes that there is no fit between what I think about the programming and what the company is thinking, what they care about, then I'm wasting my time as well as the recruiters are wasting their time. So like resolving the problem that is not like a academic problem, like, hey, implement the Fibonacci in Java, which of course we do as developers on a daily basis, right? And then I use my style of coding, my way of resolving problems, and then I can simply get a feedback from this company. Okay, so like we care about different things around the programming, so it's like also a check of similar mindset and values, etc. And basically, the problem is that there used to be a lot of tests in the industry where senior developers were asked about the academic level knowledge, like writing this Fibonacci or some inverting the binary trees.
We're looking at you, Google.
Exactly. So that's, for example, like even the way why we founded DevSkiller, because we were like not able to use these tools to hire seniors. And DevSkiller is more about like verifying if you're able to use technology to resolve problems, not to create problems using technology. So that's the opposite way of thinking, right?
Sure. I think.
Let me rephrase that a little bit because I really enjoyed what you said. So essentially, when you're a junior, you are being recruited by a company, but when you're a senior, you are recruiting the company. If you know what I mean. So you get to choose the company. You're in a position where you can actually choose the company, and the programming assignments they give you actually vaguely, or even like maybe even much more, tells you what kind of what are the company's values and how what kind of job can you expect. So if you have a great company and they give you a really lousy assignment or no assignment at all, they just want you to fill in some questionnaire, test, whatever, then that tells a lot about the company. It tells much more than just the job ad, which may say anything, right? But if you're applying to a company and you don't know anything about that company, you have like no idea what they're doing, but they gave you this awesome programming test, and the problem is actually interesting, and you learn something from that test, and they gave you feedback after that. Oh man, that's a huge bonus.
That's definitely a game changer. Yep.
I think we do have a second poll actually on this question. So if I can get it to open. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Alrighty. So do you believe that senior developers should take coding tests? It's a pretty straightforward one.
Can you vote for me? Yes.
Yeah, let's see. People will be sharing this one. Launch. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Do you believe that senior developers should take coding tests? So far,
yeah,
so good.
Yeah, after what we've said. So.
Yeah, I think we've just made the argument for it, right? Yeah. Okay. I think that's the last vote.
Confirmation bias here.
Yeah, confirmation bias. Yeah, probably should have done that one before, but
remember to stop sharing.
Yeah, 79% of you said yes. So we did have a few of you say no, but yeah.
Yeah, so we're open for discussion.
We're open for discussion, yeah. And there's the chat in here as well. If you have a question that's, that's
maybe there are already some questions.
There are some, but I think we'll come back around to them. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to our next question. I
hope the comments are not that we are not able to hear you, because that would be
yeah. No, it's definitely not that. I've already checked it. So okay. This one's for you, Kuba. International hiring continued to be a huge trend in 2021. What advice can you provide to tech recruiters as more companies hire from abroad?
Okay, so the first thing, and I will get back to what Tomek said about recruiting the company. So the company culture is something that definitely we choose as a senior developers, or not only senior developers. So what's important here is that the question is, how do we understand the international hiring? Do we talk about a global company with global teams, all in the different time zones, or do we talk more about the remote first company that hires mostly in the nearshore section, right? What we see, I think the vast majority of our customers is that they are focused on the nearshoring. So if you are a company from US, you hire people from Mexico, right? Or Argentina, so similar time zone, but a much larger market. The companies from Europe, like if you're from UK or from Germany or Netherlands, then you of course hire developers in South and Eastern Europe. So Poland, Ukraine, these are there is a huge demand for developers from these countries. So I would say that the first thing is that if you want to do good internal hiring, just think about what the internal means for you. Are you aiming to become a global company, or you still prefer this one? I want prefer to work in the team that is spread around 24 hours difference, because it's really hard to even schedule a meeting. Even a daily stand-up would be impossible.
Time zones really
so that's something that especially senior people with kids and the families, they care about the work-life balance. We talk a lot about that. I think it's even more important during COVID, when we have a lot of people work from home, and having this moment when I can say, okay, now I'm finished my job and now I'll go to the family to the next room.
Yeah,
it's important.
The same room. Yeah.
So the most important thing is that defining this stuff. And of course, if you want to do an international hiring, you need to be remote first. So the whole your recruitment process needs to be remote. I remember when the Joel Spolsky were talking about hiring people from different states or something like this, and they were paying them for the plane ticket, taking them from the limo from the airport to the company headquarters, and talking to them, etc. So it's not working right now. So even avoiding lockdowns and excluding them, it's hard to do that. So you need to define this, and you need to be remote first, and the whole recruitment needs to be remote first. And also, if you want to open your company for people from different countries, you need to know that the cultures in different countries differs. So you need to respect the different cultures, different way of thinking. And that was a huge problem for us at the very, very beginning at DevSkiller, because we have people from like many different countries and many different continents. Like you just joined us from Australia. We have people from Mexico, from US, from Serbia, from like, I don't know, Ukraine. And that's crazy. And being able to like glue all of this stuff into a single team is a huge demand, and that's something that you need to remember. It's not like, hey, let's add some, let's check more countries in the LinkedIn ad. It's not as easy as that.
No, for sure. If you guys wanted to take a closer look actually at your country, it's section 4.2 of this year's report. You can take a look at the countries where the companies from that country are hiring from. So as Kuba alluded to. All right, so we've got actually 2 more questions before we jump into our Q&A. There are some questions in Q&A already, but if you have some more, drop them in there and we'll do our best to get to all of them. But yeah, let's start with you, Kuba, for the second last question. How do you see the growth and development of technical screening assessments? Do you believe they will be an important part of the hiring process moving forward, or maybe they can be used outside of recruitment?
Okay, so the first thing is that piggybacking on this, like international hiring, yes, I believe yes, because like there is one most important thing around tools like DevSkiller, right? You have a funnel of the candidates, and of course, what you want to do is to have as many candidates in the funnel as possible, right? If you add more candidates to the funnel, you are like basically throwing them to your development team. But stop writing software and giving you the revenue, bringing revenue, and they start interacting with the candidates. So if you want to have a huge funnel of the candidates, you need to have a good filter that would ensure that only the best candidates and only the candidates above some particular threshold are like jumping into the face-to-face part. So that's the first thing which I believe is important. And right now,
with remote hiring, it's so easy to jump into the funnel because like you don't have to even travel to company's office.
You just click
or travel to take a test as well.
So the funnel is like very, very wide these days.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's even more important, I think, right now, there is, of course, this grand resignation. There is a huge movement in the market, but there are some areas, for example, the cloud technology areas and the whole like DevOps areas, how we call it. There are not enough candidates in general on this market. There are not enough people on this market compared to the market needs. So here you basically need to build skills instead of like buying the skills. So I believe that what's pretty important right now, that like recruitment, like hiring candidates, is not the only recruitment strategy, if you know what I mean. So like right now, a lot of people are talking about the upskilling or reskilling. When you have the people in your company, especially the people who are burned out with what they are doing. I'm like Java developer for 15 years, and I don't want to take a look at Java anymore. I would prefer to do something else. Then allowing such people to grow inside your organization, learn new stuff, is crucial thing. So I believe that the upskilling and reskilling is becoming a new and important, more important recruitment strategy. So that's the
to cope with the talent scarcity, basically.
Exactly. Because as Tomek said, like about the Python is becoming more and more like required, and like the number of Python developers is not like exploding, right? So you need to build these skills internally, and I believe that more and more people should care about that, and also like the horizontal promotion, so allowing people to jump from one segment to the other, especially during the COVID burnout. That's something that's important, and we need to think about that and include that into our like HR and the growth strategies.
And trying new fields as well. Absolutely. Did you have anything to add, Tomek?
I just know from experience that allowing people to jump even between teams within an organization to do something slightly different works perfectly when people are burned out, because they get to change the ecosystem of people, of technology, of projects. So if you have a chance of, if it's possible in your organization to do a little bit of mix up of people between teams, even for a few weeks, that's awesome. Of course, they're not going to be as productive initially, but maybe you'll find a talent, and definitely you'll help people who feel burned out.
Boost morale for sure.
there are some companies that are doing some programs that they call, for example, Erasmus, right? I compare to this like university program where you are allowed to jump to another team for 3 months or for 6 months. That's to check if it's something that you want to do on a daily basis. Because I can think that I would prefer to do some machine learning this time, but then you start doing the real job, not watching the trainings on Coursera or something else. You join the real job and you realize that this real job is even not close to what you believe it will look like. It's a lot of digging into the data, thinking, reasoning, etc. And I can decide I do not enjoy that. So like being allowing people to do something like this, kind of a holiday in different team, that's pretty important factor of like keeping the good culture in the company and keeping the good balance between what I can learn and what I can do for the company.
What I want to do moving forward as well, in case it's not for you.
Exactly.
So,
like just one last thing. I remember that when we were surveying developers, there was a huge percentage of people who said that they are joining they are changing the company, not because they don't like this company, they just don't like what they are doing right now. And allowing such people to work in different teams is a great option because often it looks like this, like, okay, I'm burnout with Java. Can I do machine learning stuff? No. You're great at Java. Do Java.
Stay there.
You're junior at machine learning. So let's do that because we don't want to lose such great Java developer. And in fact, this guy is still saying, okay, I'm done here. So he's changing the company, joining the next company to do the machine learning stuff. And then this first company is losing not only a Java developer, but they're losing like a great people and great team members. So that's something that is also important.
Yeah, there's certainly no lack of demand for developers. So it's about retention as well at the end of the day, because if it's a good opportunity to boost morale, like you said, but also for them to stay within the company if they are getting burned out and they try something, but they're at least happy with your company. So,
I mean, you know what they say, you are joining a company, but you're leaving a manager. Most of the time, you're not actually leaving a company as a whole. So giving people some structured way of like reskilling and like changing the position, changing job, changing the team or an area, that's actually really, really good for the company because you already have a person who might not be as skilled at a certain skill, like from front end to back end or whatever, but at least that person knows the company's culture, the values, the product, and so on and so forth. So it would be a pity to lose such a person.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, thanks for that answer, guys. So last one, actually, this one's for you, Tomek. So it's one of your biggest objectives this year as DevSkiller CTO to expand our tech team even more. What are some of the biggest challenges you look to overcome in 2022? Maybe you've got some advice for tech recruiters or hiring managers out there who are facing the same challenge.
Right. So definitely remote hiring and remote work is going to be the theme this year because of the pandemic. I think it's the first time that this word came during the webinar. So because of this whole situation, the whole process changes. So you have to think about recruiting remotely, not even thinking of grabbing people to your office, or maybe at that very last stage so that you can feel like we can talk to the actual person. But if you are aiming to hire fully remotely, so going through the process remotely and then having a person who is absolutely remote without ever meeting that person, there are many aspects that were never came to us. For example, I noticed, and I think it's also mentioned in the report, that Facebook announced that they are going to be adjusting their salaries based on where you live. So it's no longer this an amazing situation where you work.
Long life VPN.
So no longer I can live in Poland and earn San Francisco salaries because they are doing some adjustments. Whether it's a good practice or not, that's kind of a totally different discussion.
It's universal as well. Some companies are doing it and others aren't. So,
so that's one thing you have to consider when you're doing hiring. Definitely. Is this the right approach? Is this fair approach regarding the candidates? One more thing. I mean, everything basically is influenced by our pandemic situation and these days. So it's remote hiring, finding the people. If you're looking for people at the same location, you have to consider that they will most likely not going to work. They're not going to work 5 days a week in the office.
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
almost virtually no one wants to work like full-time in the office these days. They would like to work hybrid or like pop into the office.
Hybrid is the
like,
most popular one. People are tired of working in
I think it's a mixture
home.
now. Yeah, which also I think we'll definitely see more of this
so
year.
you have to be really clear about that. Like you expect the people to come to the office like 2 days a week, 1 day a week, or whatever, or fully remote, or we don't have an office, or you just have to be here from 9 to 5 because that's our policy. And otherwise people will be just like extremely unhappy once they join. And what we already mentioned, the time zone. This is often overlooked, because if your daily stand-up is always like 7 p.m. for someone from the team, they will be really sad about that, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the main challenges these days, and everything is influenced by our like world situation.
For sure. Okay, we actually have quite a few questions in the chat and Q&A. That doesn't matter where you've put them. To get through them all, maybe what we could do is ask one of you, and we'll kind of do like a quick fire response, try to keep it relatively short.
So just read the questions and we'll choose who
wants to take it. I'll just, to be an open question, whoever wants to take it. So first question here is from Oscar. How can I better prepare for the interview? He's saying he's a back-end developer. How can he better prepare for an interview? What are some preparation tips, let's say?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So one side of me would say that you shouldn't prepare for the interview because kind of you're a backend developer. So either you are a good fit or not. And remember, I was being interviewed for Google, and they gave me a bunch of white papers about MapReduce, and I believe it was something, a scientific white paper, and they were required me to read through these, because you know how Google's recruitment process looks like. Sure. I'd say that this is actually not the best approach. However, there are companies, and I would say this is actually a good thing, there are companies who may emphasize in their job ad that we are strongly focused on low latency programming, or we really want people to understand domain-driven design. So it would be nice if you familiarize yourself with these concepts if you aren't already. Probably if you're a senior, you already know all of these, but if you're a junior, it's a nice hint from the company, because otherwise it's a hit or miss. Well, you either read this book or not. You either saw this framework or not. And you can lose a lot of great candidates if you expect them to know this particular server and they know another server. So coming back to the question, just to recap, I wouldn't say you're supposed to prepare. I mean, your whole work experience is your preparation. So if you come to the job interview and it works flawlessly, it means you are perfectly fit from technology perspective. If not, then either you are great and the company will invest in you. That's okay. Or the company is doing something absolutely different. And even though you're a backend developer in, let's say, .NET, but the company is strongly focused on some absolutely different like way or approach to working, and well, you're not a good fit. Let's go to another.
I will include one more thing, because I believe that there is one thing that we all can do when preparing for the interview. I'm not talking about like acting as someone else, but for example, what's often like avoided by people is that that's something that Tomek told at the very beginning, that you are not only being recruited, but you are also recruiting the company. So just think about the questions that you want to ask during the recruitment about a company, about the, I don't know, processes they use, about how much time do I need to start to push my first changes to production, or how can I don't know, cooperate with you when I'm working remotely, what's happening with my kid is getting sick. So a lot of questions about the culture of the company, about the processes, etc., because that allows you to learn more about the company. And basically, I believe that when you have 1 hour job interview, then around like 45 minutes should be for the questions to the candidates, but at least last 15 minutes should be reserved for the questions that candidate can ask to the company. And writing that's a set of questions, especially like thinking about what's important for you when joining a company, that's something that you should do, and then you show that you can prepare it. That's the one thing. And I will like just highlight what Tomkiewicz said about like learning what the company does, how they do that. Because when you join the job interview and someone asks you, okay, so what do you know about our company? And said, I don't know anything.
Yep.
It's not looking good. It shows that you just pick up my company by random, and that's not what I would prefer to see.
Sure.
But it's even worse if you don't have any questions at all. It just means you absolutely don't care.
And then we just it's a red flag for us, for example.
So I absolutely agree. Have at least a few questions, just in case, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Our next question is a little bit broader, let's say. So what is your view on the body leasing trend in the IT recruiting industry? Either of you can take this one. If you feel like it.
So body leasing is it's a broader topic, right? And there are two reasons for body leasing. Basically, first is that we are not able to get our own candidates, and we need support, external help. And here we can use like body leasing companies, or we can use the recruitment agencies. And the difference between them is that for the recruitment agency, we pay the fee for this developer once. Like, just find us a developer and I will pay you for that. In terms of body leasing companies, we are paying this fee month by month, right? So if you're looking someone for a longer period of time, then I would prefer the recruitment agency. There is also a lot about the culture, because if I want someone to become a member of my team, member of my company, then the body leasing people are the contractors. They're here just to do their job. Okay, so that's the one thing. But the second thing is that if you need to temporarily increase your headcount just to deliver some product quicker, or rewrite some software, and then you have your own workforce to maintain it,
and start as soon as possible.
Yeah, and start as soon as possible. The body leasing is a perfect solution.
It's a good option.
So I would answer that way.
Okay. Thanks for that. Next question here. How can I get my team leads to respond more faster to our requests? In brackets, assessing test skills, giving us their availability for interviews, etc. I'm not sure. Tomek, maybe you want to take this one?
Yeah. So can I get the question again?
Yeah. So how can I get my team leads to respond more faster to our requests? Assessing test skills, giving us their availability.
I assume it's a question for recruiter. So the recruiter is asking how to
the hiring manager. I.e. the hiring manager. Yeah. So I believe.
So you know what? So being kind of a part of recruiting committee or squad or whatever you call it is actually part of your job. And you have to come into some sort of agreement between recruiters and the tech team, because they are doing their ordinary job. So being very practical, in my previous company, we were asked by the recruiters to have like 2, 3, 4, whatever hours each week devoted to recruitment, and they were free to use this time to whatever they wanted. So for recruitment processes, for doing reviews, assessments, and so on. And this made it very clear that there was a contract between the two of us, between these two groups. Like, the recruiter could always ask me to go to a job interview, to conduct a job interview, or to do a code review or whatever, because this is kind of my 10% of the workload that I promised to devote to recruitment. If it's ad hoc, so if the recruiter is always like begging developers, please come to the job interview, and developers are always like, nah, because I have my backlog and my sprints, this is not like, it may work, but it's always kind of a very informal, and it's
frustrating as well.
It's totally dependent on how kind the recruiter is, or how whatever. But if you make this more or less formal agreement that like every Wednesday between 2 and 4, it's your time slot for doing recruitment, for helping us, because after all, we are the same team, right? We are looking for developers for you, so you're supposed to help us as well.
I think I could even comment on this, is that HR and IT cooperation is kind of essential, like for hiring developers. You need to work together. So like you said.
I would add one more thing, that just ask why they are not willing to do that, because like often we have some assumptions, and we can say that they don't want to do that because they are lazy or something like this, or they are not helpful. I would ask them, because what I often saw in the companies when we're like, as DevSkiller, when we like enter into the cooperation with the company, we often help them like to tune and set up their recruitment process. And what we often see is that team leaders are saying, so on average, the quality of the candidates that are brought to us by HR team is so low that we don't want to waste our time on that. But then like talking about that and thinking about how to improve or how to like redesign the recruitment process to ensure that everyone is happy, it's a crucial thing. So talk to each other. That's the best solution to most of the problems that we have.
Cooperate, right?
You know what? I think actually the topic is so broad that we should do a webinar just about the cooperation between developers and recruiters, because there seems to be this artificial wall between these two, and they're just like struggling to communicate with each other.
Let's do that.
So just like there was like the DevOps movement started to like bring the synergy between developers and operations, we should start
the firewall.
We should have this hashtag DevRec developers and recruiters and like
DevRec is pretty good.
Keep an eye on for that one this year.
Yeah, DevHR.
Okay. All right. So this one's coming back to our topic of seniorities. So how would you advertise testing in the job posting so that the senior developer doesn't think that this is an academic or other kind of test wasting their time? I believe practical testing is an essential part of the IT recruitment process. However, such recruitment is often a deal breaker early in the process for devs themselves.
I think that this person already answered, like just advertise in in this stuff that is not a algorithmic stuff, because the worst thing that you can do is to ask people for the things that are totally not relevant to the regular job, right? When I don't know, I would start recruiting someone for the I don't know, marketing manager, and I will start asking the questions about the weather and I don't know, about some like low level sales techniques that not relevant for this person. So that's the first thing. Like advertise that you verify the skills that matters in a way that matters, and that's the first thing. The second thing is that something that you really need to remember is that recruitment test, especially at the first stage, it shouldn't be too long. Like we saw like that there are some platforms in the market that have mostly like the 3-hour tests. I wouldn't take a 3-hour test. That's I believe way too much investment for the person. And what we realized with our customers, that the 3-hour test compared to 1-hour tests very, very rarely changes the decision about the candidate. Of course, I can say more about the candidate who spent 3 hours with me than on the candidate that spent with me 1 hour. But why the job interviews last for 1 hour, not for 8 hours? Because often after 1 hour, you know a lot about this person. You see if this person fits your team or not. And the same works for the technical test. It should take like 60 or 90 minutes, and you should clearly advertise that. So there is a 60 minutes test that is using Git that you can solve on your local computer. It's about Java and Spring Boot and about the REST API, and like just do that. It's interesting, and I would say that.
Keep it reasonable, basically, with the expectation from the candidates.
So just as well, I would say that the question contained an answer on its own. So if you're composing a job ad, and the job ad says we won't give you any BS exam with choice questions that are very theoretical, what we can offer you in the recruitment process at the very stage, we will give you a very exciting programming assignment that consists of this, and this technology. You are given 30 minutes for that, and within 10 minutes, you will be given a feedback from us, because we have it automated, right? And 10 minutes later, we will either invite you to the next step, or we can move on and like.
You can also explain why you're doing that, just to keep your developers doing what they love, so writing code, not like interviewing average or random candidates.
Sure. Okay, I think we've got time for 2 more questions. So I'll just come back to Q&A. It's a rather large one. I think some of you guys have been writing them in both. That's completely fine. So I'm jumping between the two. So this one's from Tarek. So during 2001, I was hiring one DevOps in Portugal. I tried changing the work environment to fully remote, but must live in Portugal. Personalized outreaches, also automation tools. It took me 4 months to close the position. During 2022, I'm looking to hire a team of 5 DevOps. Any ideas to help me shorten the time to hire? Because I'm afraid it might take like forever.
I would just get back to what I told you about the challenges and like the recruitment strategies. there are no DevOps candidates on the market almost at all. And there is a huge shortage around the DevOps. So basically, you need to rethink your recruitment strategy around DevOps. If you want to hire some experienced DevOps people, then you need to like offer them really something more than just a job, offer them a good salary and a good culture and the place where they can develop themselves. Or do you want to hire some people who are experienced developers? They are not experienced around the cloud, but I'm not a DevOps person, right? But I'm using Linux and for, I don't know, 30 years in my life. And I'm using cloud for like last 8 years in my life. So basically, I believe that I would be able to jump into the DevOps shoes pretty quickly after maybe a few months and learn the stuff. So I believe that that's something that you should rethink if choosing people with relevant skills, but not all skills that fits your position is not a better idea. And then just helping these people to learn and acquire these skills. And then you have like pretty good team that you will build with your a particular way of doing this stuff, your way of managing the infrastructure. So I believe that's like upskilling is a good solution here.
Definitely. Yeah, so you might be scared that you are hiring a person who is not up to the task because he or she is not like skilled enough in the DevOps space. On the other hand, what is the cost of not hiring anyone whatsoever, right?
Exactly.
So maybe it's better to have someone like just sitting for 2 months and just playing around with the cloud and learning his or her stuff, and then
compared to saying after 2 months, I should hire this guy 2 months ago, and today I will have a full.
I have no one, DevOps, or I have like a great DevOps, but he or she is extremely expensive. And also notice that if you hire someone and let that person to learn for 2 months, this person will be extremely grateful to you. So you're building kind of a team here, not just an expert, but also a person who is like very like tied to a company. And that's great.
Awesome. Okay, let's have one last question. This one's nice and easy, let's say. So what IT roles do you believe will be in high demand for 2022? I think, Tomek, you will be best to answer this one.
I could say every single one because like
let's try to narrow it down to 3 maybe, okay?
The market is so like extremely broad that whatever you do, you will find a job probably.
Backend developer, front-end developer, and a full-stack developer.
DevOps as well, data science.
But so if you want to enter the market, we talk a lot about Python. What else? So everything related to backend, everything related to frontend,
and the full stack.
Seriously, yeah. So, but if I would bet a single thing, that would be Python. Just learning the language, and then you can jump into any ecosystem because you can do so much with Python. And if you're not that hardcore, because like Python is like, as we said, mostly data science, which means a lot of math and like you need quite a bit of experience here. Consider front-ends and probably not JavaScript, probably TypeScript, which seems to be winning these days. So just have a look at TypeScript and you should definitely find your way out. TypeScript plus React if you want to be really concrete. These are like the industry standard now.
I would also add that basically we are talking a lot about DevOps and cloud, right? So basically the infrastructure management area is changing, it's evolving right now. So I remember that like 15 years ago in the IT projects, there were a lot of system administrators. So people who were like keeping up the service up to date, updating all of the stuff, installing the stuff, reconfiguring firewalls, etc. Now there is no need for such people because we like enclose that in containers, in Kubernetes clusters, configuration, etc. So I would say that upskilling these system administrators to become cloud administrators, cloud engineers would be a great mutual benefit because these are the people with really extremely deep understanding of the networking, of the security principles, the virtual machines, operating systems, etc. So these are the people that are not required by the market in their current skill set, but they have 80% of the skills that are required for very sophisticated DevOps engineers, not only people who can write code and do something with Kubernetes, but the people who will understand how it works internally because they have this whole basic knowledge. So I believe that there will be a huge upskilling or reskilling, you name it, for the system administrators into the cloud areas. And there is a lot of system administrators in the market. They just need to understand that their time as a system administrator is over. Now, like they should become a cloud engineers, not keep this on-premise stuff for 2 more years just to keep my job.
So sysadmin is the new COBOL, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we have time for one last question. So
yeah, I like
this question. Let's get one last one, because I've seen this coming through. This one's for Karthik. So, do you have any career advice for data science for someone from natural sciences, specifically who has knowledge in engineering and physics astronomy? So kind of similar, like with making this transition. So could you offer any advice? I know that this isn't particularly your field.
Oh God, so you're pretty close if you have like some background in like natural sciences, and so you know your math stuff. So you're not afraid of matrix multiplication, which is like 90% of data science, I would say. I have very concrete advice. I did the Coursera course by Andrew Ng, which is like absolutely award-winning and really great. So if you go through that, you can consider yourself a junior data scientist, I would say, because it explains like everything, and it's actually pretty in-depth. So go through that. Andrew Ng, it's on Coursera. I think he's actually founder of Coursera. So that's one thing. This question will be much harder to answer if you're just like some random person, like an accountant or an English teacher or whatever, because data science is actually quite hardcore if you want to like understand it deeply. But if you like kind of know your way around maths and like algebra and so on, that should be a no-brainer to you. Just learn the algorithms, what is like linear regression, neural networks, and so on. Because to be honest, it all sounds very clever and sophisticated. It's all just matrix multiplications all the way down. So
I would also think about like connecting your two like areas of the expertise, because if you are like experienced engineer around, I don't know, automotive or something like this, then going to work as a data scientist in an automotive industry is the perfect way, because then you connect the domain knowledge and the ability to work in a hardcore engineering domain with knowledge of the data science, and this there is a huge demand for such people. If you can imagine a person who like graduated, I don't know, the cartography, right? And the person who is like fluent in mathematics after that and in Python, then such person joining a company that is doing some geospatial engineering, I mean, that's no brainer. Like you have a person who understands your domain, who is an expert in the domain, and is an expert in Python, is an expert in the machine learning. So what else can you expect from such a person? Exactly. That's a perfect employee.
Person.
The same applies to like biology, medicine, and so on. I mean,
whatever industry, right?
To be honest, I think that what we can say here is basically like all of the industries are changing. We are talking for years about the fourth the industrial revolution, right? So in every single area, the biology, the automotive, the cartography, I don't know, like flower management, real estate,
sport, everything.
There is more and more like need for developing, for writing the software. All of the low-code stuff that is like appearing on the market is just to bring the programming into the domains, right? So basically, if you are in any industry, like just learning the programming is a great thing. And there are a lot of like these software boot camps that tells, okay, so you are now an accountant and you will become a developer. I'm not a great fan of like converting accountants into developers or like any other area into developer, because like being just a developer is a totally different story than being, for example, an expert in accounting that is able to write code. But being able to write code and being a developer, these are two totally different words. Seriously, like so I believe that to be good developer, you really need to spend like 16 hours a day learning and doing the stuff, and doing it year by year, because everything is changing and you want to be up to date, etc. But like being able to write code to resolve the problems, automate stuff in a particular domains, I believe that's a great way to go.
Sure.
Yeah, I dare to say that it's much easier to turn a biologist into a data scientist knowing biology than vice versa.
Yeah,
if you know data
exactly.
science, then like learning the whole biology domain is just like
it's years
exactly.
of study.
Years of study. I think a good piece of advice is to join our data science panels coming up in 2 weeks' time. So you're going to get a lot of insight there about
Do you have any other
recruitment.
question? No?
Do we have? Let's check. Hold on. Let me see if there is one more. I think we've covered. Some people have been asking multiple across both of them. We've answered that one.
No questions.
No, it looks like no.
Okay.
All right, guys. So thank you very
Awesome.
much for okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the messages, guys, and joining us again. As I said before, we will be sending you a quick survey after this webinar. So if you take the 2 minutes out of your time to fill that in, there's also a field there where you can give us some suggestions about future webinars that we'd like to host, potentially
Like
cooperation
this one,
between HR and IT, which we talked
Definitely.
about. Yeah.
DevRec.
DevRec.
Yeah,
So
we'll think of some hashtags.
we'll think
here.
of that, but if you guys have got your own ideas, we'd like to hear them.
If you have any ideas about the hashtag, then like just drop us a line.
Just
sure.
remember, you heard it first here.
Exactly. So thanks very much, guys, for joining. The recording will be coming next week. Thank you, Tomek. Thank you, Kuba.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.